So we welcome you all this evening to an extraordinary class Tuesday evening, normally dedicated to the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, but we have a guest, a great yogi. So his name is Swami MahaYogananda, and he is based in at the Vedanta Society of Southern California, the Hollywood Center. He's recently just returning from Germany, where he held a retreat, and the subject was Mother Kali and
So the subject of the retreat was the voice of the mother.
The voice of the mother. So hopefully he won't simply duplicate what was there. It doesn't matter, nobody will know anyhow. But we're very delighted to have the Swami along with us for a very brief visit on his way back to Los Angeles. And so I'll hand you over to Swami MahaYogananda.
I'll begin by offering my respectful pranams to Swami Vimokshanandaji and Swami Purnanandaji, and it's such a joy to see you again after seeing you last in Singapore, was it? Or yes. No, Singapore is where we last saw you. And it's I've been a long time fan of Sister Nivedita, so for me to come here, it's also very exciting for me, and I see that she is also, her picture is here, and she was so gifted in expressing Swami Vivekananda's message in her own words, but transmitting it in a way that Westerners especially can understand. Her biography of Swami Vivekananda, The Masters I Saw Him, is superb. If you haven't read it, please read it. And don't be afraid by the language, which at first it's a little tough. But if you can get past that initial hump, you'll find what a portrait of her master she has painted, the master as I saw him. So, our topic tonight is Sister Nivedita and Mother Kali. We may not realize that Sister Nivedita was utterly devoted to the Divine Mother Kali. And she clearly inherited that from her master, Swami Vivekananda. We know that Sri Ramakrishna was a great devotee of Mother Kali. In the Gospel we find he's constantly speaking with her, he's repeating her name and going into ecstasy. He's speaking with her and she's also speaking with him, so he's hearing her voice. But Vivekananda we think of as the great teacher of Vedanta, the Jnani who came to the West and spread the Vedanta teachings all over America and Europe, and then all over India as well. We don't think of him perhaps so much as a devotee of the mother, but in fact, that's the case. And I thought I would start with a little reading an excerpt from the record of a talk that Sister Nivedita had with Swami Vivekananda on Saturday morning, May 29th, 1899. This is from the letters of Sister Nivedita. And Sister Nivedita spoke twice in public in Calcutta on Mother Kali, first at the Albert Hall and a few weeks later at the Kali Ghat temple. She was permitted to deliver a lecture there on Mother Kali, which is really remarkable. So let me read just a little section about this. This was right before her lecture is coming up. And he tells her, I have given strict orders about your lecture. There are to be no chairs. Everyone is to sit on the floor of the theater at your feet. And all the shoes and hats are to be taken off. If Europeans and Brahmos are present, you may have to insist on this yourself. So he starts out by saying that as far as the traditional Hindu temple goes, the Kali Ghat, all the things are to be observed, all the rules are to be observed. Then he says, how I used to hate Kali and all her ways. That was my 6 years' fight, because I would not accept Kali, his fight with Sri Ramakrishna. He was, the young Narendranath, as I think most of you probably know a lot about him, but he was a Brahmo. He didn't like image worship. He didn't have any faith in the different Hindu rituals and customs. And yet, well, as we'll see, he was held by Sri Ramakrishna's love. Sister Nivedita asked him, says, "But now you have accepted her specially, have you not, Swami?" Swamiji answers, "I had to. Ramakrishna Paramahamsa dedicated me to her. And you know, I believe that she guides me in every little thing I do, and just does what she likes with me." So this is a different side of Vivekananda. "Yet I fought so long," he says. "I loved the man, you see, and that held me. I thought him the purest man I had ever seen, and I knew that he loved me as my own father and mother had not power to do." The Sister Nivedita asks him, "But when you doubted so long, with all your chances, what wonder if Brahmos still doubt?" Then Swamiji answers, "Yes, but they never saw that immense purity in him that I saw, nor got the love." So we see how Swami Vivekananda, as the Narendra, before accepting Mother Kali, he didn't accept Sri Ramakrishna. He just was held there by his love and his purity. And Sister Nivedita goes on, "But I fancy it was his greatness that made the love hold you without palling, wasn't it?" And he says, "His greatness had not dawned on me then. That was afterwards, when I had given in. At that time I thought him simply a brain-sick baby, always seeing visions and things. I hated it. And then I had to accept her too." I think those of us who are familiar with the life of Vivekananda know what happened. He was struck with a terrible calamity in the family. His father died, leaving the family penniless. So they had not enough money even for food. They were starving. Narendra would often come home not having eaten, and seeing that there's no food on the table, when it comes time to eat, he would say, "I've already eaten," so that there would be more to go around for his brothers and sisters and mother. So things came to such a point that he felt he has to approach Sri Ramakrishna and have him speak to the Divine Mother about his difficulties. So he came to Sri Ramakrishna and said, "Sir, you have to, please pray to Mother for me. My family is starving." Sri Ramakrishna said, you ask her yourself?" "Yes, but I don't have faith in her. I don't know her. You know her." Then Sri Ramakrishna admitted, I have spoken so many times to her about you, but you don't accept her, so she doesn't answer my prayer." Then Sri Ramakrishna said, "All right, today is a holy day." It must have been a Saturday. "Today is a sacred day to the Divine Mother. Tonight, go to the temple, ask her for whatever you want. She will grant whatever you desire." And something happened to Narendranath. Some mood came over him that night. When Sri Ramakrishna sent him to the temple, he became overcome with the thought that he would behold the living Mother of the universe in the temple. And a kind of intoxication overtook his mind. When he entered the temple, he didn't see a stone statue as we see. He saw the living Mother of the universe enshrined on the altar. And he bowed down to the ground, his head touching the marble floor of the temple, and overcome with devotion, prayed, "Mother, please grant me devotion for you. Grant me love for you. Grant that I may have renunciation. Grant that I may have knowledge of Brahman. Grant that I may have discernment between the eternal and the ephemeral." So spending some time in ecstatic prayer at the mother's feet, he came back to Sri Ramakrishna. And Sri Ramakrishna asked him, well, did you ask her? Oh, I forgot all about it. I forgot all about asking for money. What's to be done now? What? Go back, ask her. So again, Narendranath went to the temple. And again, he was overcome with devotion. And this is a great lesson when we actually come face to face with the divine. When we come face to face with that infinite love, that infinite bliss, which is God, by whatever name. Considerations of money or comfort or job, all these things, they're meaningless. They're as straw. They didn't even enter Narendra's mind. So, again he comes back to Sri Ramakrishna. Again Sri Ramakrishna asked him, well, did you ask the mother to remove your financial difficulties? I forgot. So Sri Ramakrishna scolds him, what? Couldn't you remember such a simple thing? Go back to the temple again and ask her. So the third time he goes. This time he is overcome with shame. He remembers, but he's overcome with shame, like going to a king and asking him, getting his favor, and then asking for a few pumpkins. The king is ready to grant gold coins, and you ask for a few pumpkins. So like that, he couldn't ask mother for money. To cut the story short a little bit, he came back to Sri Ramakrishna and insisted that Sri Ramakrishna grant him this wish, that his family shouldn't starve at least. And finally, after much pressing, he said, all right, they will not lack at least plain clothing and simple food. And that was the case, so they didn't starve. But it was at this time that he accepted the mother. He came face to face with the Divine Mother and accepted her. And now, let's read a little more of this conversation we're having, because he hints at what happened that night. Nivedita, he said, then I had to accept her too. And Nivedita asks him, won't you tell me what made you do that, Swami? What broke all your opposition down? Now here we'll have to be a little disappointed, because he says, no, that will die with me. He was not willing to divulge exactly what happened. Then he goes on though, he gives a hint. I had great misfortunes at that time, you know. My father died and so on. And she saw her opportunity to make a slave of me. Divine Mother, saw her opportunity to make a slave of me. That's what he says. They were her very words, to make a slave of you. So evidently he heard the voice of the Divine Mother at this time in this experience. He heard the direct words of the Mother, to make a slave of you. And Ramakrishna Paramahamsa made me over to her. Curious, he only lived 2 years after doing that. And most of that time he was suffering. He was only 6 months in his own health and brightness. So this is this extremely significant incident in the life of Vivekananda. And later we'll see how he admits that in his own personal life, Mother Kali is paramount, is supreme. But his message, he had a public message and a private spiritual life. And for his message, it was Upanishads, fearlessness, the divinity of the soul, the divinity of everything, the oneness of existence. But in his private life, Mother, everything is Mother. Sister Nivedita, let's read a little more of this fascinating conversation. Nivedita says, I always look upon Sri Ramakrishna as an incarnation of Kali. Isn't that what the future will call him? And here Vivekananda says, yes, I think there's no doubt that Kali worked up the body of Ramakrishna for her own ends. You see, Margot means Nivedita's name was Margaret Noble. Margot, she used to be called Margot. You see, Margot, I cannot but believe that there is somewhere a great power that thinks of itself as feminine and called Kali and the Mother. And I believe in Brahman too, that there is nothing but Brahman ever. But you see, it's always like that. It's the multitude of cells in the body that make up the person, the many brain centers that produce the one consciousness. And Nivedita pipes up, yes, always unity in complexity. We see this tension in the life of Vivekananda also, between, on the one hand, Advaita, non-dualism. Brahman is one and non-dual, that is the one reality. And you and I and everyone are but erroneously thinking that we're separate from it. We are that. There is but that one infinite non-dual reality. And on the other hand, the Divine Mother is true, and she is all-powerful and all-blissful. This tension between Advaita and devotion, the devotion to the divine, where there is separation, where there is God and the devotee. So we find this beautifully harmonized in the life of Swami Vivekananda, and he puts it here, he mentions it here, I believe in the gods and I believe in Brahman, I believe in both. So he says, just so, and why should it be different with Brahman? It is Brahman, the one, and yet it is the gods too. And so you see, I believe in Brahman and the gods, and not in nothing else. Not in nothing else, not in anything else. Then finally, there's quite a humorous passage. He says, but how she torments me sometimes. How she torments me. And then I go to her sometimes and say, if you don't give me so-and-so tomorrow, I'll throw you over and preach Chaitanya. And that thing always comes. So this prayer is a prayer that worked for Swamiji. When things get too much and what he's trying to work for is not happening, he'll go to Mother and say, if you don't grant this to me, I'll throw you over and preach Chaitanya. Now there's a as probably most of you know, there's a long-standing tension, a kind of rivalry between the followers, the worshippers of Mother Kali, and the Vaishnavas, who are followers of Sri Chaitanya and Sri Krishna. And almost irreconcilable differences exist between these two spiritual traditions in Bengal. And so he's telling Mother, if you don't give this to me, I'll forget about you and preach Chaitanya. And then she grants the prayer. So it's, on the one hand, very humorous, and on the other hand, he could force his demand on the Mother. Then he says, and here we're breaking this rule, he says, but these things must never be told to anyone, mind that. You mean they are not arguments for the world to hear? Asks Nivedita, and he says, never. So she wrote it down and sent it to Josephine MacLeod, and now we have it. So this is for the inner circle. This is not Vivekananda's message for the world, but it can be a little message for us. And this kind of influence obviously was tremendous on Sister Nivedita. Sister Nivedita was with Vivekananda during the other turning point in his life in relation with the Divine Mother. Probably most of you know, he was in Kashmir in 1898 with Sister Nivedita and some of the other Western disciples, and he left them for a time. First he had gone to Amarnath, the great temple of Lord Shiva in the Himalayas, where he had had the direct vision of Shiva and been granted the boon of Amar, of deathlessness, of not leaving the body until he himself chose to do so. But then he came back down from the mountains with Nivedita, and gradually his thoughts turned again to the Mother. and the thought of the Divine Mother started to become overpowering, really. And he left them and went to a sacred shrine to the Divine Mother called Kshira Bhavani, where the Divine Mother is offered thickened milk every day, and the devotees specially prepare kshir, or this thickened milk. And he spent maybe just over a week there in intense spiritual disciplines. At this time, he was striving to see the Divine Mother not only in everything good, but also in the terrible, in the bad things that happened in this world, in the painful, in suffering. So he was trying to see the Mother in everything, especially misery. And he was performing worship, he was performing fire sacrifice, cooking the offering of thickened milk himself and offering it to the Mother. And let me just look up to get that quote just right. So he was thinking to himself, while meditating, the thought occurred to his mind that, see, the Muslims came and destroyed this temple of Mother Bhavani. The Mother Bhavani has been manifesting her presence here for untold years, and then the Muslims came and destroyed her temple, yet the people of the place did nothing to protect her. Alas, if I had been here then, I could never have borne it silently. So this mood came over him of that I would have laid down my life to protect the Mother. And then he heard the voice of the Mother directly, just as we are speaking. She said, "It was according to my desire that the Muslims destroyed this temple. It is my desire that I should live in a dilapidated temple. Otherwise, can I not immediately erect a 7-story temple of gold here if I like? What can you do? Do you protect me, or do I protect you?" So this was created a tremendous revolution in Vivekananda's mind. Up till then, he had been struggling. From the time that Sri Ramakrishna left the body, he'd been struggling in spiritual disciplines, traveling all over India, struggling to find a way to uplift the masses of India, then going to the West, struggling against narrow-mindedness, bigotry, racism, missionaries. There were attempts on his life, and yet struggling against all that, establishing the Vedanta on Western soil. Then coming back to India, founding the Ramakrishna Mission, lecturing from Colombo to Almora, and setting in motion the work. And then he said, after hearing the Mother's voice, he said, "Since hearing that divine voice, I cherish no more plans. The idea of building monasteries and all that, I have given up. As Mother wills, so it shall be." So this tension in the life of Swami Vivekananda between, on the one hand, intense struggle, and on the other, utter surrender. And I think that is really a lesson for all of us, because in our life there are times when we must struggle. In spiritual life, absolutely, and in our family life and our work life, all aspects of life, life is a struggle. Let's face it, life is a struggle on the whole. And yet, there comes also a time of utter surrender to Mother, or to the Lord, however we conceive of the divine. This surrender also comes, and we see it beautifully manifest in the life of Vivekananda, how intense struggle, and because the struggle was so intense, the surrender also was complete surrender. He was telling his disciple Sharat Chandra Chakravarti about this experience of hearing the mother's voice. He didn't tell many people. Sister Nivedita and those few disciples, and Sharad Chandra and probably some of his brother monks, the disciples of Sri Ramakrishna. But so he's telling his disciple, Sharad Chandra, who was very intimate with Vivekananda, and he was a staunch Advaitin and a scholar. And hearing this, Swamiji is telling him that he heard the voice of the Divine Mother. And he's thinking, well, Swamiji himself said that these kinds of voices and all that, they're just reflections of the Atman from within. So he speaks up. And we should be very grateful to Sharad Chandra because he asked all kinds of difficult questions that nobody else would dare ask Swamiji. So he asks him, "Sir, you used to say that divine voices are the echo of our inward thoughts and feelings." And in other words, and now you're talking like this, implying that. And Swamiji became grave. And he said, whether it be internal or external, if you actually hear with your ears such a supernatural voice as I have done, can you deny it and call it false? Divine voices are actually heard, just as you and I are talking. So it's also a wonderful reassurance that we can hear the voice of the Mother. We can hear the voice of God. However, I will offer one note of caution. Because we know if somebody comes to us and tells us, well, you know, God told me to do this, and God told me this, and God told me that, then usually our first reaction will be to think, this person maybe needs to go see a doctor. We question their sanity. And I think that's because ordinarily if a person tells us like such a thing, if we don't see a tremendous purity of heart and a lot of spiritual discipline backing up that, a saintliness in that person, if we don't see a tremendous saintliness, then we start to suspect that maybe they're imagining it. Maybe it is, as Vivekananda says, just a reflection of one's inward thoughts and feelings. So if we do hear the voice of God, or if we think we hear the voice of God, probably better to keep it to ourselves and find out if really we are hearing the voice of God. And oh, wonderful, yes, we can hear the voice of God, but keep it to ourselves. And see that we have the requisite purity of heart and spiritual discipline and struggle, which both times that Vivekananda heard Mother's voice, it was preceded by tremendous struggle. The first, the struggle with his family and his starving family. And the second time, this struggle to see the Mother in the terrible. So it seems that Sister Nivedita really absorbed her master's love for the Divine Mother and his dedication for the Divine Mother, because she wrote, of course, this book, Kali the Mother. Are any of you familiar with the book? It's a little booklet, a little pamphlet, Kali the Mother. And the first essay is quite difficult. It's a little bit heavy and philosophical, and I have the feeling that most people will do what I did when I first bought the book, thinking, wow, about Mother, Kali. And I started reading it, and it was really thick, and I said, well, anyhow, the picture on the cover is very nice. I put it on the bookshelf facing out so I can see the cover, and left it there for a long time. But there's gems in this book. And particularly there are two texts towards the end of the book which I want to touch on today in our remaining time. Oh, we have still quite a bit of time, so we can look at both of them. One of them is called The Voice of the Mother. And this text is, actually it has Nivedita's name on it, but she reveals that almost every line and syllable, as she puts it, was collected from the lips of Swami Vivekananda during this period after he heard the voice of the Mother at Kshiropavani. He came back to the group and was full of Mother, and lines of poetry were coming from his lips. And at that time he wrote his tremendous poem, Kali the Mother, in which expresses that terrifying, all-destroying aspect of Mother Kali. So she collected from him these expressions and put them in this beautiful text, The Voice of the Mother. However, before we look at that, because it's a little bit tough, not tough to understand, but tough because it's an all-encompassing vision of the Divine Mother who demands of us, her children, complete sacrifice and utter dedication to her. So if we're not ready for that, then it can be difficult. So I thought we could start with a very tender and gentle text on Mother Kali called The Story of Kali, which was actually written as a Christmas gift for a baby Leggett, Frank and Betty Leggett, his close friends who owned Ridgely Manor, and Swami MahaYogananda spent so much time with them. They had a daughter, Frances, and in Christmas 1898 she must have been about 2 years old. And she wrote this delightful description of the Divine Mother for a baby. And we think, well, we're not babies, why should we read this? But we are all children of the Divine Mother. And I think you'll find how touching it is, how she is describing the mother. It's appropriate for a young child, and yet it's perfectly appropriate for us too. So let's read a little bit of this first and see how Nivedita has expressed her conception of the mother. Baby darling, what is the very first thing you remember? Is it not lying on mother's lap and looking up into her eyes and laughing? Mother here means her earthly mother. We'll have to see that play, earthly mother and divine mother. Did you ever play hide and seek with mother? Mother's eyes shut, and baby was not. She opened them, and there was baby. Then baby's eyes shut, and where was mother? But they opened again, and oh! We call this game peekaboo. What is it called in Ireland? Same, peekaboo. And apparently, I don't know, but I've heard that children can be amused by this game for hours. You go back and forth, and when you disappear, because they haven't yet developed object constancy, as the psychologists call it, so they can be amused for hours with this game of now you see me, now you don't, now you see me, now you don't. And so, see how she connects this with Divine Mother. When mother's eyes were shut, where was she? There all the time, but you could not see her eyes. Yet she was there. Baby, some people think God is just like that. A great, great mother, so great that all this big world is her baby. God is playing with her world, and she shuts her eyes. Then, all our lives long, baby darling, we try to catch the great mother beaming. This, to me, is a wonderful expression of what our life is. Mother is playing with her world, and we, whether we know it or not, we're trying to catch the mother peeping, whether we know it or not. What does everyone really want? What do we seek? We want a little peace. We want a little joy in life, isn't it? That's what people want. And whatever people are running after, whether it's money, or fame, or property, or family, behind there's this craving for satisfaction. And there's only one way to truly become satisfied. And that is to actually catch the mother peeping, to actually see the divine. It's all God's bliss shining through all these things. When we eat a delicious ice cream and we feel joy, that's the joy of the divine. Can we see the mother peeping when we enjoy that ice cream? Or when we enjoy the caress of our grandchild? Or when we enjoy the sunset? Mother is peeping there. And the beautiful flowers blooming in the garden. Can we see that mother is peeping? So she says, all our lives long, we try to catch the great mother peeping. And if any of us can do that, even if any of us can look into the eyes of God just once, just for a minute, do you know what happens? That person at once knows all secrets, and he becomes strong and wise and loving, and he never, never forgets that moment. So here, bringing in the idea of the goal of life, the true goal of our life, which is to know God, to know the Mother, to know our own divinity. Through this wonderful idea of God playing peekaboo with us, Mother playing peekaboo with us. Let me read another paragraph. And when you win like that, when you catch the mother looking, something else happens, something lovely. All her other children come and play with you. The little birds come, and the wee lambs love you, and the wild rabbits touch your feet, and the poor children in the streets, who are cold and hungry perhaps, poor children that the great mother loves most of all, because they seem to have no father or mother, and perhaps no home. Poor children trust you, and make a place for you with them. We are all sitting on the mother's lap, but these sit closest of all to her breast. And what do we call the mother with her eyes shut? We call her Kali. So this is the first section of this story of Kali, introducing Kali to a child, and also in a sense to us. What a beautiful way of conceiving of this world. There are so many ways of understanding this world and our place in it. There's we can say the karma reincarnation model, where we are here dragged by our karma and we are trying to get out of it, and we create more karma and we have to keep coming back. And that's certainly one of the models offered by Vedanta. And Swami Vivekananda, he sometimes would propose the gymnasium model, that we're here to strengthen our muscles. That's the purpose of coming to this world, is to strengthen our muscles. Sometimes he seems to acknowledge at least the schoolhouse model, because in that letter to Francis Leggett he says, "You'll be happy to know that I'm learning every day my lessons in patience and love." So learning in the sense that this world is a schoolhouse and we come here to learn our lessons. But by 1900 he didn't like that model anymore, because in Camp Taylor he was camping with some of the actually, I think it was all ladies. He was camping with a number of American ladies. And one of them said, "This world is a schoolhouse where we come to learn our lessons." Swamiji said, "Who told you that?" She couldn't remember. Then he said, "Well, I don't think so." "I think we are clowns, come here to tumble." And then she, "Well, why do we tumble, Swamiji?" "Well, because we want to. When we get tired, we will stop." This idea that we're tumbling, that it's actually a kind of play, which is another of the common models to understand how we are in this world. Of course, from the standpoint of jnana, we say, well, it's actually all just an illusion, and you are actually the witness, and just deny everything. None of this is Brahman. It's all false. That's the what would we call that? The Maya model, the Maya as illusion model. And this would be the Maya as Leela model, the Leela, that this world is the play of the divine. And Sri Ramakrishna also supports this model very frequently. And we see how they're not mutually contradictory. We can accept karma and still say that yes, this world is a play, and we are playing with the Lord. We are playing with the Mother. Everybody is each person, each soul is a manifestation of Mother. So whether we're having a good time or we're having a fight, it's all Mother's play. If we can rise to that level, then life becomes a lot easier. If we can see it as a play. So she hints at this kind of mood. Were you ever for a few minutes unhappy, and did mother or nurse or auntie or someone else come and pick you up and love you and kiss you till you were not unhappy anymore? Sometimes God is like that too. We get so frightened because those eyes will not open. We want to stop the game. We don't like it. We feel alone and far away and lost. Then we cry out. It has grown quite dark, and still the mother's eyes are shut. Let us play no longer. So we feel sometimes. But the eyes are not shut really. We think so because it is dark all around. Just at that moment when you cried out, the beautiful eyes of the mother opened and looked at her child like two deep wells of love. And you, if you had seen, would have stopped playing all at once and saying, Kali, Kali. You would have hidden your little face on the mother's shoulder and listened to the beating of her heart instead. So this idea of play, and it reminds us of Sri Ramakrishna's story, no? Of the child who's happily playing with his toy, the baby, and mother is busy cooking, and the child starts crying for the mother. So she comes over and she sticks a pacifier in the baby's mouth. And the baby keeps quiet for some more time. Mother goes back to her work. Finally, the baby has enough of the pacifier and throws it out and starts screaming at the top of its lungs for mom. And then the mother takes the pot off the fire and comes running and picks up the child. And like that, we are so busy with our toys that we don't feel the need for God. We don't feel the need for Mother. When we call intensely for the Mother, then she comes. That intensity is required. So, this text is worth going through and in its entirety. I think we won't have time to go through we've done only the first half or so. Because I also want to introduce you to the other text, the Voice of the Mother. I'll read the last paragraph. Here she introduces the idea of the universal brother and sisterhood of humanity. Could we say siblinghood? That sounds funny, doesn't it? There is something else. You love mother and father and auntie and nurse. Of course you do. Besides, they love you. And they are all so good and kind. But far, far away, mother has a brother. A big brother, like Hall. Do you love him too? Why? You never saw him. He never played with you. No, but mother loves him. She's talking here about the baby's earthly mother, Betty Leggett, who has a brother whom the baby has not seen. Mother loves him, and you love all the people Mother loves, don't you, dearie? And so we love all the people Kali loves. All the children she plays with, and the lambs, and the flowers, and the great trees, and the little fishes. She loves all these, and she loves too the stars in the sky. And so do we, for we are her children, and everything that she loves, we love too, because she is the mother, and we cannot help it. So this call to love, that the worship of the conception of God as mother is really one of the most tender love. The mother, the bond between a mother and the child is the closest human bond that we can conceive of. And that reflects this intense love of Divine Mother. That Divine Mother loves her children, and we love her. If we can come close to her, we taste that love. And it's not so much that she loves her children as that she is love. She is love embodied as mother, infinite love. So, are you still with me? Yeah. Are you ready to shift gears a little bit? And we'll just do a little bit of this, the voice of the mother. Now, it's interesting because this is written down by Sister Nivedita.
Do you require harmonium? We have.
No, it's not. It's not to be sung. We're not going to sing it. It's a poem. It's a psalm or something. But it's not to be sung.
I said because you also sing, you see. We can have one song at least from you.
Okay, at the end we can have a song. The voice of the mother. Because it's written down by Sister Nivedita, but it's collected from the lips of Vivekananda, and she felt, and I think we can feel, that it's actually expressing the words of the Mother herself, the Divine Mother herself. So it starts out, so she collected them and put them together into this remarkable document. Arise, my child, and go forth a man. Here we have to add a woman. I think he's hearing the mother speaking to him. Vivekananda is hearing mother speak to him, so it comes as forth as, go forth a true human being. Arise, my child, and go forth a man, go forth a woman. Bear manfully, or womanfully, what is thy lot to bear. That which comes to thy hand to be done, do with full strength, and fear not. Forget not that I, the giver of manhood, the giver of womanhood, the holder of victory, am thy mother. So we start out with, here we can hear this kind of message coming through Vivekananda at other times also. Fearlessness. Arise, awake, and stop not till the goal is reached. Arise, my child. Go forth a man. Be fearless. There's a certain, the Divine Mother represents power. In the Hindu tradition, Mother is worshipped as Shakti, as power, as infinite power. So the worshippers of Mother feel tremendous strength. Mother is behind us. Mother is power herself. She gives us strength and power. So when we feel ourselves to be children of Divine Mother, also we can take this attitude, which is Vivekananda's attitude, as he put it in a letter to Swami Brahmananda. I am the child of the Divine Mother, the source of all power and strength. To me, cringing, fawning, whining, degrading inertia, and hell are one and the same thing. O Mother of the Universe, O my Guru Deva, who would constantly say, this is a hero, I pray that I may not have to die a coward. This idea of this strength, not a weakness. sometimes we get such a mood, no? We feel weak and we feel lost in life, and we break down in tears at the feet of the Lord and pray for divine intervention. And that also has its place. But here, he's giving us a different mood. And Nivedita also reveals in The Master as I Saw Him that on a certain solemn occasion, he, Vivekananda, entrusted to a disciple a prayer to her that in his own life had acted as a veritable charm. And I've always wondered what that prayer is, and I wonder if it's this prayer that I will throw you over and preach Chaitanya. I wonder if that's the prayer. But up till now, I'd like to find her diaries to find out, because she doesn't say here what the prayer is. But what he tells her about it is remarkable. He says, "And mind," he added suddenly, turning with what was almost fierceness upon the receiver, "make her listen to you when you say it. Make her listen to you. None of that cringing to mother, remember." But this idea that mother is our own, we can enforce our demand on her. Sri Ramakrishna would also approve of this attitude. Yet she's not a stepmother. She's our own mother. With whom else can you enforce? If not on your own mother, whom else can you enforce your demand? So yes, you can enforce your demand. And here, make her listen to you when you say it. So when we pray to the Divine Mother, this attitude, make her listen. Yes, we will. We are the children of the Divine Mother, who is the source of all power and strength. Think, now we'll go back to the text. Think not life is serious. What is destiny but thy mother's play? Come, be my playfellow a while. Meet all happenings merrily. I think this is extraordinarily difficult to do unless we have also a contemplative aspect to our spiritual life, that we practice meditation and begin to taste a little bit of peace and joy in that meditation. Without that, it becomes very difficult. When life gets rough, it becomes really difficult to see it as mother's play. If life is going on nicely, sure, yes, mother's play, it's all sweet. But mother's play isn't always nice and sweet. Mother's play is sometimes very rough. Like when we see young puppies fighting, no, and they get into such a scrap that they start hurting each other, and then they start yelping and crying. And we know that, oh, they're just puppies, they're just playing. But it hurts for the moment, it hurts. So, as our inner life deepens, as we begin to taste a little bit of peace and joy in meditation, which is sure to come if we practice sincerely, then this attitude becomes a little easier to take up. That meet all happenings merrily. Can we meet all happenings merrily? Knowing that we're playing with Mother no matter what. Murmurest thou of need of purpose? It's a good question. Sometimes it feels like we're spinning our wheels in life, no? And what's the purpose of my life? What am I doing with it? I'm stuck in this job, or I'm stuck with these things. Murmurest thou of need of purpose? Thinkst thou the ball is purposeless with which the mother plays? Knowest thou not that her toy is a thunderbolt, charged with power to shatter the worlds at the turn of her wrist? Ask not of plans. Needs the arrow any plan when it is loosed from the bow? Such art thou. When the life is lived, the plan will stand revealed. Till then, O child of time, know nothing. If Mother is the archer, if she fixes the arrow, then what if we're just the arrow, what do we have to worry? Just be the arrow. It will hit its target. The target has already been fixed by the archer. So this hints at this state of utter surrender to a mother's will, just to be the arrow. And she'll give more of this in the next paragraph. But when it feels like, oh, what's the purpose? This gives a reassurance that yes, there is a purpose. We have a purpose. Mother's plan is unfailing. My sport is unerring, she says. My sport is unerring. For that alone, set forth on the day's journey. Think it was for my pleasure thou camest forth into the world. And for that again, when night falls, and my desire is accomplished, I shall withdraw thee to my rest. Ask nothing, seek nothing, plan nothing. Let my will flow through thee as the ocean through an empty shell. Well, it's a pretty tall order. And Swami Vivekananda would often say, I don't make plans. But then he would also make lots of plans. So we see that he gives us a model, how to, yes, we make plans, because otherwise how do we go through life? We make plans, but actually we know that Mother makes the plans, and so we make proposals, and then Mother makes the disposal. So this idea of utter surrender, as we become just an empty shell, and the ocean flows through that empty shell. On the one hand, it sounds very unattractive, just an empty shell, then who am I? But I think the hint we get from the great mystics is, if we attain such a state, it's a state of perfect fulfillment and infinite joy. To be a perfect instrument of the divine, a perfect instrument of the Mother's will. That beautiful prayer of St. Francis, which I also love. Lord, or in this case we can change it, we say, Mother, make me an instrument of thy peace. Let just be an instrument of the divine. So it's not I, but thou. And yet tremendous strength comes, because it's Mother's will who is flowing through us. So it's tremendous strength. It's not our strength anymore, it's God's strength. All right, well, we won't be able to finish it because the time is coming to an end, but one more paragraph, and this is quite the strong and thrilling passage. This thing understand, not one movement shall be in vain, not one effort shall fail at last. The dream shall be less, not greater than the deed. Thou shalt go here or there for some petty reason, and thy going shall subserve great ends. This is also a great reassurance, that it may be some small act we do, and yet it may have a tremendous effect. A simple smile to a neighbor who's feeling down, it might change their day. And they might in turn caress their grandson, right? Or caress their daughter. And if instead we give the frown to the neighbor might get more angry and then give the daughter a slap, right? So tremendous repercussions from even a small act. Now here's the part that's really interesting. Thou shalt meet and speak with many, but some few shall be mine from the beginning. With these thou shalt exchange a secret sign, and they shall follow with thee. What I make of this is that, first of all, yes, we see that all are embodiments of the divine, all are Mother's children. And we meet and speak with so many different people. But let's face it, we are in a special category of people called spiritual seekers. Seekers after truth, seekers after the Mother. Most people are not seekers. All people are Mother's children. Most people are not consciously seeking. They're seeking peace and joy in their life through their careers and their families and their money and all these things. But some few are different. They've become seekers. And with these, we shall exchange a secret sign, and they shall follow with me, with us. And that sign, get ready for it. Deep in the heart of hearts of mine own flashes the sacrificial knife of Kali. Worshippers of the mother are they from their birth, in her incarnation of the sword. Lovers of death are they, not lovers of life, and of storm and stress. Such shall come to thee with torch unlit for fire. So, what do we make of this? The sacrificial knife of Kali, deep in the heart of hearts of mine own, flashes the sacrificial knife of Kali. We know the image of Kali is quite terrifying. On the one hand, she has 4 arms and she's telling us, her children, don't be afraid, don't be afraid. And yes, I'm granting you whatever you want. I'm granting you boons with her 2 right hands. And at the same time, with her left hand, she holds a bloody sword and a severed human head. What is that all about? Whose head is that? Whose head is that bloody head? It's your head. It's your head. It's my head. As I understand it. That big fat head that gets me into so much trouble. And the sword is the sword of wisdom. You'll see on some of the images of Mother Kali, the sword has an eye painted on it. That's the eye, represents that eye of wisdom, that third eye of wisdom, that separates the ephemeral from the eternal. And this big fat eye that gets me into so much trouble, that I am so-and-so, and I have so much money, and I have this job, and I have this family, and all this that gets in our way of Mother. We can't become a perfect instrument of Mother as long as that I remains. So Mother cuts it off. So we place that sacrificial sword in the heart, and then there itself we can sacrifice all the goats. The goat of anger, the goat of lust, the goat of pride, the goat of selfishness. We sacrifice them here in the heart. And this is just Swamiji's poem, Let Shyama Dance There, where he says, make the heart a cremation ground and burn there the corpses of pride, selfishness, egotism. Those are all corpses. Burn them. And where does Mother dance? Mother dances in the cremation ground. Make your heart a cremation ground. Burn those corpses there, and then alone will the Mother dance there. So that's as much as I can give in this time of this sacrificial knife of Mother Kali. But I take it as a beautiful image. When I start feeling angry, when I start feeling lustful, when I start feeling proud, try to feel that Mother Kali's sword is here deep in my heart. I use it to cut all these things down. All right, let me read now the last paragraph because it brings it to a close, but the rest of it you'll have to look it up, and you can find it online also. Strong, fearless, resolute. When the sun sets and the game is done, thou shalt know well, little one, that I, Kali, the giver of manhood, the giver of womanhood, and the withholder of victory, am thy mother. What a tremendous assurance that when the game is done, we shall know that Mother Kali is our mother. We shall know our eternal relation with the universal mother. So I think I have spoken for about an hour and probably gave you more than one can possibly digest in one talk, but I'm very happy that I could share with you some of my thoughts about these 2 sacred texts as I look on them. Sacred texts on Mother Kali, penned by Sister Nivedita. Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Shri Ram Krishna